Greetings, humans. Happy week 13. Lucky week 13, I like to call it. The week we've all been waiting for. It's not week 14, where we're going to have 6 teams on bye again. Some of them pretty damn good. This week, it's your Cardinals and your Panthers. Get those people out of your lineups. Right now, I'm Bob Harris. I command you. I don't command anything. I'm just Bob Harris. Senior editor, footballdiehards.com. Here for my weekly Saturday Ask Me Anything session. You will most likely ask me lineup questions, but feel free to ask anything else. I'm here for you. I'm your emotional support fantasy analyst. I hope you're having a great week. Hope you're all heading to the playoffs. Sounds like we got the sound dialed in. And again, I know many of you have been patiently working through the sound issues with us. We have been impatiently working on them behind the scenes, hopefully have them solved now. If not, we have a few things up our sleeves still, but don't think we're not doing nothing. We're always doing something. So appreciate everyone showing up every week. And again, I'm here every Saturday at noon Eastern time for these live streams. You can also find me here Wednesday. Oh, somebody went to Machine Head last night. God dang, Iron Eddie. I'm gonna want to hear more about that. Love Machine Head. I don't know about Rob Flynn, right? He's kind of like a little bit of a, I know a couple guys quit, a couple years ago, and really good players. So, and it seemed like it was more of a Rob Flynn control issue. Anyway, nobody else knows what I'm talking about, Iron Eddie, except you and me. So let's get back into the football stuff. Again, I'm here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. for On the Hot Seat. Here every Saturday for this Ask Me Anything session. We also do our DFS live stream. It was last night. If you missed it, go to the channel or go to the website and you'll find the replay there. Jamie and Eric digging deep on some of the DFS plays, and it was great stuff. Also, you can catch me on the radio, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, Monday, Thursday, Friday. It's at 10 p.m. each night. Monday and Thursday, we go till 1 in the morning. Friday night, we go till midnight. Had a great time last night. Great guest, Tara Roberts, from Football Diehards, CBS Sports, Dynasty Vipers. She's fantastic, does great work. Tonight, we'll have Russell Clay from the Guru Elite site joining us on SiriusXM NFL Radio and the Fantasy Channel. We are simulcast on Saturday nights, 8 to 11. Mike Dempsey and myself. Sunday morning, you can catch me and Jeff Manns. There's Mike Levine. I saw you there on. Look, when you ask me questions on Twitter, everybody, I don't answer because I can't answer all of them. I can't answer all of them. I don't answer any of them, right? I feel like so that's why we do these live streams, so I can answer them here. And I see you have lots of questions. Quick rundown of the news issues. By the way, there's tons of articles and content up right now at footballdiehards.com, including Casey Joyner's Blue-rated wideouts just posted. Brad Cruz's sit-start, great high-stakes player. Great DFS content, of course, from the scholar John Lobb. His sheet of DraftKings knowledge every week is a revelation. My DFS 3 and out. Gary Davenport's the Shadow Knows. Justin Linero's digging into crates. Jamie does the best DraftKings cash game plays. He'll do a GPP article as well. And early in the week, we have the great Evan Tarciano, Joe Kalana, Matthew Sharon doing the waiver wire stuff Monday, Tuesday. So we got you covered all week long. Constant stream of news and updates throughout as well. Go to footballdiehards.com. It's a website, and sign up if you're not signed up. Use the promo code Diehards to get 15% discount on what's left of the season. It's winning time, people. It's getting serious. I see the questions are getting serious, so I'll get on them. I think most of you already know the conventions here, but if you could give me the first initial with the last name. Most cases I can pick it up, but there's cases where it just eludes me. So, and if you want to throw in the opponent, so I don't have to think it through as carefully, and it's kind of right in front of my mind. So appreciate that. John F., we'll get started here. And also narrow it down as best you can. Don't give me a list of 8 guys, right? I don't want that. Nobody wants that. It's too hard to process. We're trying to move fast. Need 2 of the following: Hollins versus the Los Angeles Chargers, Slayton versus Washington, Samuel versus the Giants, Zonovan Knight versus Minnesota, Robinson versus Minnesota. I'm guessing that's James Robinson. Mostert versus San Francisco. Yeah, there's more than one Robinson, right? So these are like his problem. But I think James Robinson, I'm guessing if you have the Zonovan Knight. So Slayton is questionable with an illness. I'm not really keen on that passing attack. So let's just get the Jets running back situation out of the way right now. I mean, we don't really know. We don't have enough information to say with certainty, but based on what we saw last week, I mean, Zonovan Knight has the confidence of the team, right? James Robinson was a healthy scratch. I think he'll be available this week. Great point, though, on the Football Diehards radio show this week by our friend Jay Felicio from Front Yard Fantasy, who pointed out that there's a way that this draft compensation for the Jets goes up from a 6th round to a 5th round pick. How does that happen? It happens if James Robinson runs for 250 yards this year. So there's a little bit of interest in them. Maybe not. He's run for 75 or so far this year. So there's maybe a little interest in them not getting him up there. So I would probably play Samuel of this bunch. Um, just I like the multifaceted role. But Knight, if you have a little hunch, if you feel confident in Knight, I think, if I was totally confident in Knight, that would be the easy play for me here. So go ahead and go with that if you'd like. I think, you're trying to play volume. I don't know if it's locked in volume though, right? And Slayton has been. If he was not questionable, it would be him. Hollins has been fine too. I'd probably narrow it down to Samuel and Knight. Higbee versus Seattle or Bellinger versus Washington. Again, I'll just go with the healthy option. Not that any of the options around him, John F., are healthy. We know what the shortcomings are. And Higbee didn't see any work last week, right? He was coming off questionable designation. He did play, but Bryson Hopkins had some run. We'll see John Wolford will start at quarterback. So maybe that works a little bit in his favor as opposed to Bryce Perkins. But Bellinger, I don't know if he's going to play or not. So, maybe if he was active, maybe I'd go ahead and switch to Bellinger. You'll know that because of the timing of the kickoff. So I'd be fine with that. Don't have a lot of hope for the Rams offense, people. By the way, didn't run through the news yet, but you probably know most of it, right? This the usual assortment of fun. Josh Jacobs is listed as questionable, just like he was last week before he ran for 3,000 yards. Okay, it was 300. I don't know. Christian McCaffrey's off the injury report. Deebo Samuel remains on it, has a bad thigh bruise. Justin Fields is going to play. Aaron Rodgers is going to play. Lamar Jackson is going to play. Deshaun Watson returns to the lineup. The Bengals should have both Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon back. Travis Etienne, this one doesn't seem right to me, but we'll see. They keep saying conflicting things, like he's fully good to go and fully cleared, and then he's questionable. I don't know. Najee Harris off the injury report. Mike Williams ruled out. Remember, Elijah Mitchell's out. Darnell Mooney's done for the year. Allen Robinson done for the year. Kyle Pitts officially done for the year as well. So there's some stories for you. Kevin O'Brien needs critical advice to make the playoffs in his NASA league. Ooh, rocket scientists. That's going to be tough. Full PPR, best two flexes from these: Zay Jones, Rashad White, Zonovan Knight, Chris Olave, and Jeff Wilson. So, I mean, we all love Jeff Wilson right now, right? We just hate the matchup. And it seems like Mostert will be back. So I don't know what the split will be exactly. So I might shy away from Jeff Wilson a little bit this week. I'm fine with Olave. Rashad White, the issue is it's Monday night. It looks like Leonard Fournette's going to be back. What they've told us before Leonard Fournette didn't play last week, right, was that it was going to be a hot hand situation. It would not surprise me to see Rashad White start. It would not surprise me to see Leonard Fournette start. I think, well, maybe a little bit if Leonard Fournette starts. But both of them are going to get work. And so I just don't know what that split's going to be. And it being a hot hand situation, it adds a little bit of uncertainty to it for me. Zay Jones coming off a career best game. People don't have career best games every week as a general rule, but it is a great matchup. I'm going to probably take a chance on Knight here, and I'd probably go with White and Knight. But if you wanted to substitute Olave in for Knight, I wouldn't blame you. Happy week 13, Remy. Kevin O'Brien. So a lot of these questions, I know why you're asking them, because these are all players in a similar group. And so again, I have some hunches. I'll share them with you. But if you have hunches that conflict with my hunches, don't shy away from your hunches. You're knowledgeable. You've been doing this. You understand what it is. And like, how many times do you sit there after a game? I know I should have done that. Why did I listen to somebody else? If you don't want to be doing that, listen to yourself. I'll talk you through all these options and kind of highlight the positives and negatives and the range of outcomes more than just say, hey, you must play this person, because none of these people must you play over these other people, because they're all in the same range, right? I think you get it. Rashad White or Damian Pierce, Kevin O'Brien wants to know. This is an impossible question. Damian Pierce has been horrible the last 2 weeks. I think he'll get better. Cleveland Browns matchup is a fantastic matchup for running backs, but it's a horrible offense, right? At some point, does he go from 8 yards to 80 yards? Yes. Might be this week. I think, to me, Rashad White is a safer play right now. And so this is one of the things we have to get past as fantasy managers, right? We know that there's a good game in Damian Pierce. We've seen good games from Damian Pierce. We're afraid to miss out on the next good game from Damian Pierce, even though the last 2 games have been horrible. We know that the good one's coming, and maybe it's coming this week. And so when you're setting your lineup, you need to look at your lineup, maybe look at your opponent and say, do I have room to play like a high variance player? or what has been a high variance player, because, you know, he's been really good and he's been really bad, and hopes you're getting the good, right? So these are the things that are kind of on you to decide. For me, I would play it safer, and I would go Rachaad White. I perceive him to be a safer play right now, especially in a, you know, I mean, I prefer in a full point PPR, but even in a half point PPR, relatively speaking, the receptions are going to mean more. I think White will have more value as a receiver, and I don't know if Dameon Pierce is going to go from 8 to 80, right, this week. I mean, that's totally possible, but I don't know that it's going to be. Kevin Mulder, need 3, Dameon Pierce, Rachaad White, Isaiah Pacheco, Gus Edwards. Again, I'd probably sit Dameon Pierce out of this group for the reasons I outlined. I think I'm going to get a lot of Dameon Pierce questions. And again, if you want to play Dameon Pierce based on the past success in the matchup, I get it. I hope, you know, so Kevin, this is a great example of, for everyone, you know, checking this out. You have, you know, 4 pretty good options, right? Do I think any of them are as high end, or have we seen any of them be as high end as Dameon Pierce has been? No. Do they feel like safer plays, though, based on the variance we've seen? I mean, 2 straight 8-week games is a concern. I'd like to see him get back on track. I don't know that this is as much a Dameon Pierce problem as it is an offense problem. At some point, opponents who watch film sit there and say, well, wow, they have one weapon in this offense. Let's figure out how to stop that, because so far that's what they have. And I'll remind you, Brandon Cooks is out this week, so there's one fewer weapon, you know, to threaten opposing defenses. So, you know, this is the concern for me. I get it. The Cleveland matchup is sweet. I think there's reason to believe Dameon Pierce will be better. I don't know that I need to play better until I see it. That's kind of where I'm at on him. Good morning, Scott Hedge. Thank you for coming. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Always appreciate the time, you all. It's fantastic. For me, it helps me sit here, by the way. You know, I'm like caught in the weeds. You know, I'm in the depths of this. I'm running around chasing news constantly and trying to, you know, put up narrow bands of analysis. And, you know, it's refreshing for me to be able to stop. I use the radio for the same thing. You stop and you actually get time to think through some of these things. So, you know, as I sit here and I talk through these situations, it's very helpful to me. I hope it's helpful to you. Hi, Steve Atwood, fellow stickman. We are both drummers, people. Steve Atwood, probably a actual drummer, me, a hack. Hi, it's nice to see you, Bob. I have a running back question. I have Joe Mixon in one of my leagues. I picked up Zonovan Knight from the Jets. However, P. Ryan is still available. Which one would be the better addition? So I think, you know, that's going to depend. If there's no Joe Mixon, and that's a late afternoon kickoff, right? So that's going to be a little problematic for you. So I do like Knight, and so let's just suss this one out one more time. So we go in, and last week, you know, Michael Carter is hurt early. James Robinson was a healthy scratch. Do we know why that was? I don't know that we do. Could it be that he doesn't have a big role on special teams? Possibly that, right? Thinking you go in, thinking the game plan is going to be Michael Carter heavy. And it turns out Zonovan White gets the opportunity, whatever the case. And he's pretty good. And you listen to some of the quotes from Robert Saleh, who said things like he's a juicy runner. He's north-south. He does the one cut and go thing that works great for this Kyle Shanahan-style offense. And we often see running backs rise up out of nowhere in this Kyle Shanahan-style offense because they fit the system well, right? And it's a one cut and go. And so, you know, maybe James Robinson hasn't been hitting the hole as fast. And to me, I don't think he has been. So, you know, you look at this game, and I mentioned at the top, in case you just tuned in, you missed it, there's an incentive for the Jets not to play Robinson as much. Look, if they think he's going to help them win, they're going to do this. But it's the difference between a 5th and a 6th round pick. If he runs for 250 yards during his time since the trade as a Jet. I mean, is that a big enough deal to sit him for the Jets or to not play him? Maybe if they think Zonovan Knight can get the job done. Rich Cimini from ESPN.com kind of ran through it. He thinks Ty Johnson is probably the most trustworthy of these guys, has a receiving role, can handle, you know, the rushing. We saw it last week. But Knight sure looks like the between the tackles guy. So, but again, it's kind of speculative. We're basing this on a single piece of data, one game, right? And some associated, you know, reading of the tea leaves. So P. Ryan would be better, but I don't think he's going to play. So right now, Knight would be better because I think Joe Mixon's coming back. You should check the website, Steve, today. We'll probably get some inklings, if not later this afternoon, then early overnight, certainly, if you check the website. And if you tune into the radio, the SiriusXM Fantasy with me and Jeff Mance, we'll have the latest on him. But again, that's a late afternoon kickoff. It's in Cincinnati, so it's not like we can get some intelligence from Mixon making or not making the trip, right? So it's going to be tricky. I would, I think you're going to be looking at Knight here because P-Rye is going to have a secondary role. Darth Tua needs our help. Quarterback, standard fields versus Green Bay, Dak versus Indy, or Lamar Jackson versus Denver. Can we talk about Lamar Jackson for a minute? I mean, he's not getting a lot of top 10 performances. I laid it out in an article last week. He has had very few of these. I mean, since week 4, I don't know that he's had but one top 10 fantasy performance, right? So the upside's still there to me, right? Is it there against Denver? I don't know. Dak versus Indy, I'd be fine with. I'm playing Fields, and this is a kind of a you issue. Do you feel comfortable? He's off the injury report, or at least no designation. Practiced fully the last 2 days. Are am I confident that he's going to continue running the way he ran or playing the same as he played before? I kind of think he will, because that's kind of been what he is. I'm hoping he can stay healthy. And so this is where we're at. I think it's enough of, I have enough confidence, Darth, to play him over Dak. I think Dak is the safer play, right? He goes in healthy and he has great weapons and Indy's pretty tough, has been fairly tough, but I'm going to go Fields and hope for that rushing upside there. If the concern is that, and again on Lamar, I mean, I'm not against Lamar. It just hasn't been phenomenal, right? The week to week production has not been there. Maybe it's just the Rashad Bateman piece is missing. They don't have that high end receiver that kind of unlocks the Rubik's cube of goodness that is Lamar Jackson. I mean, he can have huge games, but it hasn't been good on the whole. So I'm probably waiting to see if that normalizes a little bit. Kevin O'Brien, would you consider playing Christian Watson or Garrett Wilson with good matchups over CeeDee Lamb and Jalen Waddle with tough matchups, full PPR? I don't think it's insane to consider playing Christian Watson at all, anytime, right? He's on a serious role. I mean, there are players that I feel more consistent and have longer histories to lean back on. CeeDee Lamb and Jalen Waddle would be among those players. But you're right, they're tough matchups. Tougher to run, though, against San Francisco than it is to throw against San Francisco. Lamb is, it is a pretty tough matchup. Garrett Wilson's, on a roll. Both those guys are on a roll, right? And Wilson has had really good volume in 3, I want to say the last 4. If you go to the website, go to my DFS 3 and out column. He is one of my 3 DFS plays, cheap price, tons of upside, great after the catch, running skills, and a good matchup, right? Just like Watson. So not against it, Kevin. I think though, I'd have a hard time doing it myself, but I would be thinking the same thing. And this is going to be a your hunch thing. I mean, again, it's not crazy. I'm probably still playing Lamb. Maybe Waddle is I'm more open to consideration there. Let me just see how far apart the rankings have them. Yeah, Lamb and Waddle are inside the top 10. Wilson is inside the top 20. So, and Watson is in the, definitely in the starting consideration. So, he's, ascending player with a great matchup, I think this is going to be on you, Kevin O'Brien. I'm sticking with Lamb and Waddle. If you want to play the matchups and you feel hunchy, it's not insane. Iron Eddie is still recovering from Machine Head. Glad to hear that. Iron Eddie was epic at the Stone Pony in Asbury, New Jersey. 3-hour show, just them including Iron Maiden covered by Hallowed Be Thy Name. I've seen them do Hallowed Be Thy Name. Actually, the last show I saw them, which was the last show. I think it's Phil Demmel and what's the drummer's name? McLean. Really good lineup for that band. The Stone Pony's quite the place too, by the golly. All right, Mike Levine. Again, apologies for not getting back with you on Twitter. And if you guys are asking me questions on Twitter, I do apologize. I feel like I can't keep up on Twitter. It's an endless, morass of question asking. And if I answer one, I get about 100 more. So I just don't do it because I can't answer all of them. So that's why I do this hour here and this hour on Wednesday night to try to answer all these questions. So apologies for that, Mike. PPR, need one. Gibson, Thielen, or Claypool. I'll go Gibson as long as he's active. And I don't know that I wouldn't go Thielen over Claypool still. I don't know what Claypool is going to be. Opportunities are going to rise. Fields is there. I mean, at some point, maybe Claypool makes good, starts cashing in. I don't need to play that, anticipated breakout because it hasn't happened. I play it safer with Thielen. I think Thielen will be a safer play. So Gibson if he plays, Thielen if not. Hello, Charles Davis. Iron Eddie, full PPR, need just one. Josh Palmer versus Las Vegas, Miles Sanders versus Tennessee, Zonovan Knight versus Minnesota, Brian Robinson versus the New York Giants. I'd probably go Brian Robinson here versus New York Giants, a pretty certain workload. The possibility that there's no Gibson or that Gibson's at less than full speed. Miles Sanders, how many players coming off a 143-yard rushing week am I going to say not to play, right? Also, how many 143-yard rushing games are not the team high, right? The issue for me, and I have an article up with this on Football Diehards right now, the matchup. Tennessee's not allowed 70-plus rushing yards to running backs since week 1. They've only allowed 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 running backs all season. Over the last 4 weeks, Tennessee is giving up 50 rushing yards per game and under 3 yards per carry to backs. That's per Matthew Berry from NBC Sports, and it's a really good point. Tennessee's defense has not allowed more than 20 points in 8 straight games, by the way. So two of those are losses, including a loss to Kansas City, a very explosive offense. So it's a pretty tough defense. So I'm kind of avoiding that. I mean, I think you can play Sanders because that high upside is there. It just seems like, this team is a bit of a chameleon, and they kind of form, they have the ability to play to the matchup. And you also, kind of thinking that maybe this is going to be an A.J. Brown heavy week, right? The revenge game. So maybe that's just wishful thinking. But I do think the matchups favor more of a pass-heavy approach this week than a run-heavy approach for me. So I guess the answer is coming down to Zonovan Knight and Josh Palmer. With no Mike, with no Mike Williams, Palmer is like a reasonable play. We've seen some high-end performances. We've also seen DeAndre Carter turn into high-end performances. So, Robinson for me is the easy call here. And I guess the only issue for me with Robinson is I don't know if there's a ton of upside, right? I mean, he's got to probably hit that touchdown, but the volume's going to be there and opportunities. And if there's no Gibson, maybe we see a little more, or if he's limited, maybe we see a little more receiving work there. Paul DeSantis has 2 not great ones. Not for me, they're for you, Paul. All mine are great, and that is a total lie. I've been making some really hard decisions, just like these, right? Set nearly, I want to say 30 lineups each week in redraft and dynasty leagues, and I have many of these same miserable circumstances. I just want to see what DJ Chark, not this little note from DJ Chark here that he's not getting into the revenge game narrative. Okay. Conklin versus Minnesota or Higbee versus Seattle. Easy one there. And Lazard at Chicago or DeAndre Carter at Las Vegas. Probably both of them are easy for me. DeAndre Carter coming off a huge week. It's been pretty unpredictable. Alan Lazard, not, reliably high end, but has a pretty consistent role in the Packers offense. I'm told that Aaron Rodgers owns the Packers. We'll see if beat up Aaron Rodgers still or owns the Bears. I think he may well. Watson's obviously become the preferred option there. I mean, there's, no way to sugarcoat that. But Lazard does, the difference between Lazard and Watson is Lazard is a capable player, but he doesn't have that super high end like Watson, right? But if you look at the numbers, the week to week numbers, I just wanted to bring them up. The weeks he's played, it's been almost double digits every week, but I want to say 2. Yep, every week. So, I mean, it's a pretty consistent floor. Go back to week 2. He missed week 1, 9 points, 14 points. These are PPR scoring values. 17, 13, 17, 11, 18, 7, 10. So, to me, that's the safer play. I'm probably going to do that. And by the way, I said the tight ends was easy. I should have said which one. Conklin. It's the big Mike White energy. I'm buying into it. Right? I don't know what to make of this Rams. I don't know if there's a player on the Rams I'm eager to play. Well, I know there's none I'm eager to play. I mean, I might be okay playing Kyron Williams. I mean, maybe John Wolford is better than I remember, but maybe not. Just a mess. Offensive line there has been the problem all year long, and it's not getting better. So, yeah. Trey S. Full PPR. Start 2. ETN, Jeff Wilson, Rashad White, or Lombardi Lenny. Thank you. And good luck on lucky week 13. 13 is my lucky number, everybody. So let's see. So ETN, I have concerns. Mike Dempsey, my co-host on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, his day job is in Jacksonville for the flagship station of the Jaguars. He broadcasts from the stadium, and his spider senses are tingling full tilt on this one. So I'll just share that with you. We don't really know. I mean, we keep hearing conflicting things. Last week, when he was hurt, Travis Etienne was cleared to return, but did not return. Okay. This week, he was good to go. And if you remember, he was cleared. It's like Kenny Golladay. That's not going to interest anybody. Something's up with Kenny Golladay, though. Let's see what it is. Sorry for the real-time news updating. Nothing. Don't play Kenny Golladay. My best advice of the day. Watch him get a 5-touchdown game. So Dempsey just feels like everything has been conflicting here, right? So Travis Etienne, in practice, he's good to go, ready to go, limited. He's fine, good to go was the word yesterday, Friday morning from Doug Peterson. Then after that, the questionable designation. I mean, which is it? Is he good to go or is he questionable, right? And sometimes teams box check a little bit, right? So if a player is limited at all, they'll go ahead and list them as questionable just because it's kind of the spirit of the rules or follows the kind of the expected norms, right? The Ravens are big on this as well. Someone misses a practice snap or two, they're going to be questionable, right? They're going to end up playing. And maybe that's the case with Etienne on a fast track, indoors, great matchup. Looks like a great situation for him. So be aware, it's an early kickoff, so you can pivot away if you need to. I'm probably going Etienne and Rachaad White in this one. That you have Lenny, though, you're going to be kicking yourself in the tail. Look, Jeff Wilson, I don't want to overinflate this because it's not like players can't produce in tough matchups. They do every week, right? But it's a fairly tough matchup. We have Jeff Wilson as running back 20. I'm playing Rachaad White over, and I'm just checking the rankings agree with me. Sometimes I don't always agree with the rankings 100%. Again, we're talking about tiers here. If there's two players in the same tier, the running back 1 tier, the running back 2 tier, the loose flex level tier, I mean, you get inside that, and you play them within that tier, you're probably having good luck. So when you have multiple players inside that tier, you can kind of, pick your poison. And I think in this case you could. I'd probably go Rachaad White because he's a starter over Lenny, or he seems to be the starter over Lenny, and roll with that. Andrea, good to see you. Thanks for coming. Need 2. 2 running backs tonight versus Minnesota. P. Ryan versus KC if Mixon is out. Rachaad White versus New Orleans, or Dameon Pierce versus Cleveland. So I mean, P. Ryan is first if there is no Mixon, but I think there'll be a Mixon. Also, so you do have fallbacks, right? Because you have the Monday night. You could go to Rachaad White if you wanted to do that. I think I've kind of run through the night situation. I mean, my expectation is he's going to have a significant role, pretty much like what we saw last week, but that's not certain, right? So if you're confident in that, I think he's a fine play. P. Ryan, definitely, if there is no Mixon, then you could pivot to White. And if there is a Mixon, I would go White. Again, Dameon Pierce, I don't want to belabor the point, and I don't want to suffer from recency bias, but the trend is your friend, right? And the trend, or in this case, not your friend, with Dameon Pierce. He's been shut down for 2 games. To me, watching the games, it seems like opponents are going all in on stopping Dameon Pierce because he is the entirety of this offense. Until the Houston Texans change that, I don't know why opposing defenses are going to change that. Maybe Cleveland isn't as capable of changing that as other teams, right? And so you're counting that. I do think, if you're hoping for anticipated volume, I mean, I think they want to give Pierce more work. I'd like to see it before I play it. Also, Tua for me, Trey S. And, for me, when you're playing Tua, and you could say the same a little bit for Dak. I think Dak less so. But Tua, man, you're playing Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. You want a piece of those guys. Kevin Mulder, if Debo plays, do I roll with an injured Debo or play Dubs or Deontay Johnson? So Dubs is questionable. He'd probably not be the guy for me. It seems like Watson and Lazard are a little more established. And maybe even Randall Cobb has kind of established himself in a role there. I think Dubs is a promising player, but I don't think I need to force him into a lineup coming off a 2-week absence and listed as questionable. Deontay Johnson, it's a great matchup, right? and I'd probably be fine playing any of these guys over the 3 that you list there, Kevin. I'd either play the injured Debo if he's up, but the problem there is going to be the kickoff times, I believe. You've got to have a fallback in the late afternoon game. So you could always pick up Mac Hollins, and that would carry you in case Debo doesn't go. And if I had to drop somebody, it would be Dubs for Mac Hollins. And hopefully you could get Dubs back if you wanted him. Charles Davis for PPR, George Pickens at Atlanta or Michael Pittman at Dallas. I'm probably, I'm not against playing George Pickens here, right? I'm not against playing this matchup. The Falcons are a great matchup. The Cowboys are not. Not just for Pittman, right? And I think it's pretty close in our rankings. They are in the same tier. They're kind of in the tail end running back, wide receiver 2 tier. I think Pittman, again, tends to be a fairly safe play. But, man, do you feel like anybody's safe in this Indy offense going against the Dallas pass rush? I do not. So this is a place where I'd take a chance on Pickens, I think, for me, given the matchups. Remy, should I start T. Higgins versus KC or Godwin versus New Orleans? I'm also starting Daniel Jones versus Washington. Should I stick with him or put in Mike White versus Minnesota? Boy, Mike White has more weapons than this. I'm going to go to the rankings too, just see how far apart it is. Yeah, I'm probably going to play Mike White there. He has more weapons, right? And it's a pretty favorable matchup. Beat up secondary anyway. He should be able to take advantage of. Like, I'm not totally sold that, the big game Mike White that we saw last week is the Mike White we're going to see every week, but he does have some weapons. I'll go with that. And Higgins or Godwin, I'm probably still playing Higgins in what I hope to be a shootout, but in a just a PPR league, I don't think you could ever go wrong playing Chris Godwin right now. He's been phenomenal. And by the way, the rankings also kind of are where I'm at. It's Higgins slightly over Godwin. Charles Davis, highest floor between Lamar Jackson versus Denver, Josh Fields versus Green Bay. Highest floor. So, I mean, you're basically saying the safer play. I think it's Lamar Jackson, right? Because Justin Fields, I mean, they're two comparable guys. Not comparable, but, same abilities. Look, Fields has been way more effective, right? But they're both similar styles of play. The rushing equity that you would expect. The Denver defense is a bit of a concern for me. But still, I think I think Lamar Jackson is a relatively safe play. Speaking. That said, I would play Fields. But if you're looking for the safe play, I mean, if it was me, if I was deciding this, if I was going to play, but you're asking about the highest floor or the safest floor, it seems probably Jackson. Well, Fields has the higher floor, but is he the safer play? Maybe maybe I'm reading the question wrong. I mean, I think Fields has the higher floor, honestly, but is he a safe play coming off injury? I don't know that he's that. And Lamar Jackson also got a knee in the quad last week, so he missed a little practice time this week. But he's off the injury report. They're both off the injury report, so I'd be playing Fields myself, and I think he has the higher floor. I don't know that he's a safer play. So if you're looking for just the highest floor, it's Fields. If you're looking for the safer play, maybe not. Hey, Ed. Appreciate you coming. Need 3 flexes. Sutton versus Denver. Sutton of Denver versus Baltimore. Kyron Williams against Seattle. Nico Collins against Cleveland. Chase Claypool against Green Bay. Jordan Mason. So I think both Debo and Mixon will play, both late afternoon kickoffs, but it looks like you've got some late afternoon options there, at least in the form of Mason and Kyron Williams. Of that group, so Cortland Sutton turned up as questionable on the injury report, has an illness. That's something to watch. Maybe we'll find out today. Check the website later. Generally speaking, if players aren't going to make the trip or something, we'll hear about that at some point, and I'll have an update up on it if that's the case. Don't know. Maybe nothing at all. Seen a lot of illness go around. You see a lot of players, play perfectly well through that. So, assuming that he is playing perfectly well, I don't like the matchup. I don't like his offense. I don't like Kyron Williams, his offense, but I do like the matchup. Nico Collins, hate his offense. Matchup, not horrible. Chase Claypool, I think it's a fine matchup. Not real keen on what Chase Claypool's done. Jordan Mason, secondary role, but I mean, if he takes the full Elijah Mitchell role, it would be nice, right? I don't know if I expect that. I wonder, kind of looking at what the local observers are saying and listening to what Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are saying. Sounds like Tyrion Davis-Price will have maybe a little more role now that there is no Mitchell, right? So maybe that secondary role gets chopped up. Those carries not belonging to Christian McCaffrey get chopped up between the two. So maybe I'd like to see how that plays out a little bit. So I'm probably going to go with Kyren Williams in a PPR. I might go there if it's a PPR. I'm looking there. Is it a PPR? I'm going to assume it's PPR, and I'm going to say Sutton and Kyren Williams. Nico Collins. I mean, Kyle Allen did look okay the second half last week. But boy, I hate pinning my hopes on things in Houston. The definitive answer for me is going to be Sutton if he's up and running, and Williams. And if there is no Sutton, I'd probably switch over to Nico Collins at that point. Just don't, I need to see something from Chase Claypool. It just hasn't been there, right? And I get it. The opportunity should increase with no Darnell Mooney, but I'd like to see it. Mike Levine, full point PPR, Hunt versus Houston or Patterson versus Pittsburgh. I'm going to play Patterson versus Pittsburgh. It's a great matchup for Cleveland. We just haven't seen a lot of Hunt, right? Just even in good situations. So, if you have a little bit of a hunch there, feel free. Patterson's still getting at least half the workload, right? So I'm going to go that way. Andrea needs 2. Pittman versus Dallas. Chris Olave versus Tampa Bay. Josh Palmer versus... So I'm definitely playing Olave. I might want to lean, so again, I don't want to get overwrought about the matchups because, even the toughest matchups players tend to produce, right? So, but I'm looking at the rankings, Pittman 23, Palmer 26. They're right in the same range. If you want to avoid that Dallas-Indy matchup, and I kind of do, honestly, I don't like Indy against this defense. I like Jonathan Taylor, right? But I don't like the passing attack. I just don't see Matt Ryan faring well under pressure. So if I have another option fairly close, Olave, easy call. If I'm following the ranking strictly, it's Olave, Pittman, and then Palmer. If I'm playing my hunches a little bit, I might play Palmer. But again, we've seen Palmer. There's times where, last week, DeAndre Carter kind of usurped the secondary role, not the non-Keenan Allen role. I want to say, a few weeks ago, Palmer kind of disappeared, but he's had some big games as well. I'm probably leaning Palmer just because I fear this Dallas matchup, maybe more than I should. Again, I've talked about this before, but you get these, we get these ideas in our mind and we can kind of blow them up, especially when I'm talking them through over and over. I can pretty much convince myself that a really tough matchup is an impenetrable wall, right? And that's probably not the case. But I don't think this is going to be a good day for Matt Ryan. Robert Taylor, deep sleeper. Are you going to give me one? I'll look for it. Moreau or Komet, PPR. Probably prefer Moreau given, just based on matchups. But Komet has the touchdown equity. I mean, I'm not gonna steer you off. Let me see how far apart we are in the rankings on those. It's a really good matchup for Moreau. It's a less good matchup. They're ranked 11th and 12th. I'll go ahead and go with Moreau. Steve Linder. Hi, Steve. A PPR league. Which wide receiver would you start? Pittman or Elijah Moore? I'd probably go Pittman over Elijah Moore. At running back, I need Gus versus Denver, Pierce versus Browns, ETN versus Lions. I'm probably playing ETN, assuming he's active. I'm going to play Gus at Denver, and Pierce, it would be my fallback if ETN doesn't play. And again, you're probably going to hear me say this a lot about Dameon Pierce, that I don't like him this week. And I do like the matchup, though. So, again, he's not an unplayable commodity. I would just like to see some kind of return to the workload that I need, and some reason to believe the production will follow. Okay, Kyle Davis. I need 2 wide receiver PPR: Evans, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Nico Collins, Julio Jones, or Corey Davis. I need 2. I think Evans, and I'm probably going to go. We haven't addressed the issue, so let's address the issue. What are our expectations with Deshaun Watson coming back? My expectation is some rust. A heavy run game, right? To take some pressure off him. and obviously making it, taking the matchup into account. So I think it's probably a big Nick Chubb get day. And, had the question about Hunt. Haven't seen the workload there, but I mean, if there's ever a week you were going to play him and think you might get something, I mean, I think this might be one of those weeks. So Galladay, questionable. So just keep you up to speed on the news as it's coming in. Galladay is questionable. His ability to contribute pretty questionable as well, I would say. So Evans, DPJ, Nico Collins. Oh yeah. I'm gonna go Evans and DPJ, but Watson, I don't know if they're gonna ask him to throw a hell of a lot, and I don't know what his chemistry is. I'm basing this kind of on the chemistry. Reportedly was good between those two in training camp, right? Didn't see a lot in the preseason games. I think Nico Collins and for me, Nico Collins and DPJ are kind of in a similar tier. They're both kind of players on the rise. I don't know if they're trustworthy, but I trust them definitely more than Julio Jones and Corey Davis. So I'd probably play them in the order you have them, Kyle. Mike Levine, full PPR, need 2. Nico Collins versus Cleveland, DPJ versus Houston, Zay Jones versus Detroit. So where does Zay Jones fit into that equation? Kind of laid it out, kind of prefer, kind of go DPJ, Collins, just kind of based on, the overall offense in part, right? I mean, you can kind of take that into account. And I do try to take that into account when I'm making these. Sometimes the decision is who's the better offense? What's the more trustworthy offense? I think Cleveland is more trustworthy, even not knowing what the hell Deshaun Watson is. I mean, is he going to, does he come in and he immediately revert to the guy we last saw like over 700 days ago as a frontline fantasy prospect, quarterback 5, throwing for 5,000 yards? I don't know if he's going to be that guy week 1. So I mean, I'm probably still taking a chance on DP Jones, but where Jones fits into that equation, let me just see. Again, he's coming off a career game, right? Career best game. Do I expect him to have another game like that? Probably not so much. But in this case, I'm probably taking him. I would probably go. So it would probably be for me, DPJ and Jones over Nico Collins. Hello, Mr. Scampers. So happy to see you here. Always appreciate your attendance. Hope the sounds are good, people. We've been working on that. I think we might have it dialed in. We're hopeful. Hi, Bob. On Blitz last night, you advised Fields over Goff. Yes, because I'm playing the upside. I mean, so agree on all that. I'm still going Fields just because of the rushing equity, right? What we saw, there's a reason he's been one of the highest fantasy scorers. So your concerns, though, are legitimate, right? So obviously I'm not concerned that his rushing will be limited. I don't know how you limit his rushing. It's just such an integral part of his game. The fact that he's off the injury report, I'm going to go ahead and, just like I would with Aaron Rodgers or someone else, I'm going to assume they're okay. And if it was like a decision between, let's say, Fields and Tua, so I just don't have Goff in the same tier, right? We have Goff ranked well outside the starting tier, even in a good match, even, in what should be a shootout. It is high scoring, high on the slate. So I get it. But I use the injury issues or perceived injury concerns as more of a hair splitter. I don't think this is a hair to split. So I'm still going Fields here. If you're concerned about it, though, that's the thing. I mean, I don't think Goff will necessarily be horrible. So, if it's a concern for you, then you should play your concerns. Quarterback issue, Mike White or Tannehill? I play Mike White over Tannehill. It's the Eagles' pass defense fairly tough. You might have heard Darius Slay and James Bradbury. But honestly, it's easier to run against the Eagles. I mean, I don't want to oversimplify it, but I think this is a big Derrick Henry game. Ben Jones, the center, is back off concussion. That adds to the vibe. But the Eagles just have been struggling to stop the run. They've added some pieces. Might get Jordan Davis back, but he's been out a little while, and he'd be a difference maker, but I don't think enough of one. So I go Mike White there. Steve Linder. And by the way, Graham was referring to the Blitz. We do that on the radio show at the end of the shows on Friday night, especially. Fast either or questions. So he's asking me to elaborate because I don't elaborate there. It's just the answer. So there's a reason why he is asking that. Steve Linder. Gus versus Denver, Latavius Murray versus Ravens, Swift versus Jacksonville, ETN versus Colts. ETN is playing the Detroit Lions, and I would rather play him. Is this week? Yes. ETN, I'm going to play ETN if he's up and running. Again, would feel better if he was off the injury report, like Fields, like Aaron Rodgers. I think that would be a little more comforting to me. I have concerns about him, but probably given your options, I'm going to play him, and I'm probably going to play Gus versus Denver. And then it would be Swift, and then it would be Murray. Mike Evans, Dameon Pierce, or Jamal Williams, half point PPR. Thank you, George, for an easy question. Jamal Williams. I'm not telling you not to play the guy with the most rushing touchdowns in the NFL right now. In a reasonable matchup. Also, Packers D versus the Bears, Steelers D versus Atlanta, or Lions D versus the Jags. Probably play Steelers D against Atlanta. Mark Jarzynski. You like Evan Ingram at Detroit, Komet versus Green Bay, or Bryant versus Houston. So I'm not big on Komet this week, but it would be Komet over those options. I keep trying Evan Ingram, and he keeps not doing anything for me. I think there's going to be a game where I think there's going to be an Evan Ingram week. I just don't know when the hell it's going to be. Harrison Bryant's okay. So, it's a good matchup. There's no David Njoku. I'm probably still going Komet here with Fields back. Again, I went with, who did I go with over him earlier? Komet's still at the tail end of my tight end ones, right? He's at 12. Not a great matchup. Packers are reasonably good. They've given up a couple big games to tight ends, though. But for the most part, they've been really good. Pat V, need one. Dameon Pierce, Joshua Palmer, or Michael Pittman. In this case, I might play Pierce over these options. Mr. Scampers has a question. Half point PPR, Jeff Wilson at San Francisco. You always ask the hard ones, Mr. Scampers. I think it's on purpose. I think I scrolled too far. Hold on. How the hell did that happen? Scrolled about a mile past. Two hunches. Jeff Wilson at San Francisco, Gus Edwards at Denver, Juju at Cincy, Najee at Atlanta. Najee's another guy that's off the injury report, right? So I'm going to play him like he's off the injury report. I'd go ahead and play him. I'd probably lean Gus, but Juju, and, again, I don't want to overinflate the matchup. It's a tough matchup for Wilson. And also Mostert is off the injury report, and I just wonder if they're not going to lean on both of them. And I do think Wilson is the first piece of that puzzle, right? I think both 2 games we've seen him play, he's been, more than half. I think it was just over half the snaps week 1, about 60% week 2. Last week last game wasn't as great as we wanted it to be, in what should have been the proverbial smash matchup against Houston, but he didn't get the job done. So, part of that is they've got these other fantastic weapons in Miami so that's I'm not down on Jeff Wilson. I just probably play those other pieces. And so I guess the question is, Najee would be the easy lead piece, but do I want to squeeze Juju in? Who I think has been really good. It's come on really strong in recent weeks. And granted missed the time. Just want to double check my rankings, see how crazy I am here. Generally tend to be fairly crazy. It's like Juju on 2. I think, to me, the decision is between Edwards and Juju. Maybe Juju gives you I don't know. I'm probably going to stick with Edwards here. And it's a close call. Those 2. The matchup is not super great, but you can run on Denver. So, all right. I've decided Scampers. And I don't have really any strong hunches here. I feel like I want to have a hunch on Juju, but I really don't. Other than I think he is the leading piece of that wide receiving core. The guy's not named Travis Kelce. Steve Linder or PPR need one out of these wide receivers. Deontay Johnson versus Landon, Nico Collins versus Browns, Josh Reynolds versus Jags. I'm going Deontay Johnson there. I think he's fallen behind George Pickens, but he hasn't disappeared. Forgot Elijah Moore. I think I'd still go with Deontay Johnson of that group if I just get one. Hi, Scott Kobe. If you had to do over drafting, who's your number 1 draft pick for this year? Yeah, I mean, it would obviously be Austin Eckler. I mean, I think. And I had concerns going in. There's no doubt, and I mean, touchdown regression is a thing, and everybody's regressing in that regard. Eckler has done really well in the touchdown department, though. I think we're up into the double digits. I don't think I'd promote Jamal Williams up into that spot. So it'd probably be Eckler. It would be one of the, I mean, the thing about the first round picks is we're drafting everyone there at their ceiling. We're drafting them for their ceiling. We're not drafting we're not drafting on the assumption people are going to come up short. And we know they will, right? Or we know the odds are they will. But I mean, where else are you going to draft those players? Are you going to draft guys who can get in the third round, in the first round, just because you think they're going to play at a first round level? No. So, I mean, that's the whole idea. That's how you win in fantasy is you get players at great value. So there's always going to be a range of guys we have to take in the first round because you're not going to get them otherwise. And there are other players that you maybe think have better upside or you have loved their situations, but you don't have to pay that price for. So why pay that price? But of the group that went in the first round, I think Austin Eckler would probably be my one right now, I guess. Knowing what I know right now, I mean, Cooper Kupp, and I want to say there was at least once or twice where I drafted Cooper Kupp first overall, just changing up because we're doing a bunch of best balls and stuff. So, so I think that would be, the easy call there. It would be Eckler. I think Cooper Kupp would be in the argument. Look, I mean, Justin Jefferson could be in the argument as well, and Jamar Chase had he been healthy. MJK 2288 Swift, Jamal Pacheco, or Rashad White. Pick one. Jamal White is my pick. You're not late to the party, Mark. Party's ongoing, man. Party's not over till it's over. You're not late till I'm not here. Need two: Pierce, White, Wilson, Slayton versus Washington, or Zay Jones versus Detroit. Need two of those. I would play Wilson and White of those two. Right, Slayton listed as questionable, along with now Kenny Golladay. Shocking development. And Richie James, by the way, also. And Daniel Bellinger. And Gary Brighthouse. But anyway, I feel like I'm allergic to Pierce. I'm not allergic to Pierce. I'm allergic to his last 2 weeks of production. That seems like a bit of a trend to me. I want to see better before I play him again. And, I do think that at some point we'll see better games from him. But right now, defenses are able to focus on stopping him because there's nothing else to threaten them, right, in Houston. And it's just been easy until somebody starts punishing them for, putting all their emphasis on stopping Dameon Pierce. They're going to keep working on stopping Dameon Pierce. Godwin or Jamar Chase? I'm playing Chase if he's active. And obviously, the timing of that would work out okay for you. I mean, I don't know how you don't play the upside of Chase. If you don't want to, though, Godwin is a great play, right? He's right there in the wide receiver one territory, just outside on our rankings. It's okay. Robert Mitchell. I just put Elijah Moore on my bench because I think there is an upside. Your thoughts? I'm thinking he might just take Jacoby Myers' spot if he's out. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I do think there's some upside with a quarterback not named Zach Wilson there for Elijah Moore. I do think also Garrett Wilson has kind of established himself as the lead piece. Corey Davis is going to be in the mix, but I think, I'm encouraged. Well, let's put it this way. I'm encouraged that Elijah Moore is encouraged, right? He came out of last week's game feeling really good about it. Just good to see some positive news out of there. I don't know if Mike White's going to continue being Mike White. He seems like the Pete Davidson of quarterbacks. People like him for a little while and then don't. Then find out he's not that great. No offense, Pete Davidson. So yeah, I mean, so right now, yes, I think Elijah Moore and Jacoby Myers, by the way, you mentioned him. I mean, he's been a really overlooked commodity, right? He's been really solid in PPR leagues as a week-to-week producer when he's healthy. Anyway, I won't go too deep there. We've got about 5 minutes left, so I'll finish off these questions if I can. Remember, you can catch me on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. I'm Bob Harris, in case you're just tuning in and you're going, who is this guy? I'm Bob Harris. Senior editor, footballdiehards.com. You can find me, all my work there at Football Diehards. You can also hear me on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio Monday, Thursday, Friday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. All those nights, 3 hours on Monday and Thursday, 2 hours on Friday, 3 hours tonight, Saturday with Mike Dempsey on both NFL Radio and the Fantasy Channel simulcast. You can call in. We'll take your questions all night. We'll have Russell Clay from the Fantasy Guru site on as a guest tonight. Jamie Calandra will join us to talk a little DFS as well. I think San Francisco, Miami is our game of the week, so we'll have beat writers from those two teams come in and drop a little knowledge on us there as well. And same with the pregame show, we'll have beat writers from 4 teams. I could figure that out, but I don't have time. I want to answer questions instead. Anyway, drop Mike Williams for DJ Moore for the rest of the season. Probably not. Probably not. I mean, I do like, I'm encouraged for DJ Moore and the shares I have of him. I still think Mike White has a ton more upside, when he's back. And I think he'll be back. I guess that's the question. Do I think Mike Williams is going to be back? Yes. But make no mistake what the Carolina Panthers game plan is. They're going to run the damn football. And Sam Darnold seems to understand what his job is. Don't make mistakes. Hand the ball off. And when I do throw it to DJ Moore. So you got that going for you, but I still go Williams. I want more upside. What he's playing, and you're obviously getting, not a frontline spot for you. I think I'm guessing, Darth, if it is a frontline spot, and you need someone immediately, then yes, DJ Moore. But not immediately this week, but going forward in the short term, because I don't know how long Williams will be. I think he's getting closer, but he hasn't been on the practice field yet. He was out stretching yesterday. That was a good sign. Who do I like better this week, Mac Hollins or Elijah Moore? Look, I think there's an argument to be made for Mac Hollins, Robert Mitchell, right? And, the Chargers defense, easy to run against, not as easy to pass against, but I just think the bandwidth is there. And I would play the bandwidth for Hollins, which has been pretty certain, right? Elijah Moore, I think there's a little upside, and I do like the matchup there. Minnesota's secondary is really beat up, right? So there's, so it's pretty close. I'm guessing I'm just going to play the more anticipated volume of Mac Hollins. Maybe I want to see Elijah Moore have more than, one solid outing. If he's going to have it, though, this is a pretty favorable matchup. And I don't know how in depth you want to go on those, but I do have articles up about both of them on the website. So if you want to go check that out at footballdiehards.com, please do. KB Reynolds, Rashad White or Josh Palmer. I'm going to go ahead and play Rashad White there. If Debo is out this week, says Scott Kobe, what are your thoughts on Juwan Jennings, and can he get 10 PPR points? He can get 10 PPR points. I'm all in on Brandon Ayuk, as you know, have been since the beginning, and have suffered some great disappointment, finally coming to fruition. But I think Jennings is a guy that if there is no Debo, you can count on as a reasonable floor. I think 10 maybe is right about what I'd be aiming for or hoping for. I'm good, Jeremy. Thanks for coming in. Cousins or Watson? Try not to throw on, but if Debo doesn't play, do I go Chark, Jahan Dotson, or Trent Sherfield? I'd probably go Chark there. Revenge game. But I'd probably go Chark. Hope the shootout carries him over. I mean, Lat Murray or Gallup, I'd probably play Latavius Murray at this point. And Cousins, I'm playing over Watson. I just want to see what Watson. I'm not a huge fan of this matchup, and it's a much easier matchup for Watson. I just kind of like to see him for a week before I start pinning my hopes on him. If you have a better feeling for that, by all means, go ahead. Because I mean, I do think it's a tough matchup for Cousins. So for me, I'm playing a little safer and hoping Cousins' weapons carry him out. But it's a tough pass rush for the Jets and tough secondary as well. But I think his weapons can carry him through. I just don't know what to expect from Watson. I think I ran through all the others. Scott Kobe, Charles has an answer for Charles. Matt Ryan stinks when you need to count on him most. He lets you down. I don't have a good feeling against Cowboys this week, honestly. I just don't. JR 1616. Hello, Bob. Tony Pollard versus Colts or Mike Evans versus Saints. I'll go ahead and take a chance on Tony Pollard and hope last week was the outlier game there, right? Have him ranked very highly. For some reason, and they've talked about it, Todd Bowles talked about it, Mike Evans has talked about it, the connection with Tom Brady seems to be a little messed up. I think maybe part of this is, and part of what's leading to Chris Godwin's success is the routes they're running. Mike Evans is running the longer, the slower developing, the longer dropbacks, and the offensive line has been an issue. They're going with the quicker hitting passes, and those are the routes that are going to Chris Godwin. So that's the hair lifter. I mean, Mike Evans is not bad. He's still a great player. Just seems like the offense is evolving a little bit. And I'm hoping Tony Pollard comes back into form this week. Graham F. Half-point PPR, Sutton versus Ravens or Darius Slayton versus Commanders. Hey! So I guess both early kickoffs. Man, I'd almost rather play Sutton or Slayton in general, but wait. How close is it? How crazy would that be? I don't have a great deal of faith in this Russell Wilson character. You'll be surprised to learn. So we ranked them 31 and 32 this week in the rankings, Sutton and Slayton. The slight lean to Sutton. So what I'm saying is, if you don't trust Sutton as much as I don't trust Sutton and would rather play Slayton and he's active, go ahead. I think that's what I'm saying. All right, I'm going to have to wrap this up. Brendan Bond, I'll get a few more in here before I got to go and record my injury video, which you'll have up on the website here in a short while. Also, tons of great articles going up. I'll have articles going up all day with some in-depth looks at some of the things that you've been asking about. And especially Robert, I mean, it's kind of hard to get deep into matchups here, and I appreciate that question. But check out the website. The articles go way more into depth on that kind of thing than I can right here. Brendan Bond, Rashad White, Jeff Wilson Jr., or Olave in the flex. I'm probably going slightly to Rashad White here. Still slightly to Rashad White, but Gus, I might want to rather play Gus than Wilson this week. And Olave is fine play any week. You know, I'm just going over the anticipated volume or the safer anticipated volume of running backs over the slightly more volatile workloads for receivers. Montgomery, Pollard, ETN, PPRD2. Probably would go Pollard and ETN over Montgomery, and I love Montgomery this week. It's a great matchup, but in PPR, I'd probably go with those other two. Dak or Carr, I'm playing Dak. Should I start Mike White or Jared Goff over Lamar Jackson this week? I'm probably not doing that. But if I did, the one might be Mike White. Thank you, Clinton, for coming. I appreciate you. Thank you, Mr. Scampers. I'm glad the sound is good. We've been working on it. I think we've got it dialed in. Technology's crazy. But I'm glad we got it figured out, and we're sorry you had to deal with that crap more than us. It's very disappointing to put this on and try and put this information out for people and not have it go out the way you want it to go. So Gus Bus or White in the flex, probably leaning Gus or White in a full in a full point PPR. But again, you have to worry about the Leonard Fournette specter. I mean, I don't think Leonard Fournette is not good anymore. I just think, you know, they needed to find a way to get White in. I think he'll continue to start. And we heard Todd Bowles talk about it last week before they ruled Fournette out. It's going to be a hot hand situation. You know, Fournette is capable of getting a hot hand, but it seems like White gets the first chance. Kayla, half point PPR, tight end. I'm going to go ahead and go Everett here, but it hasn't been great, right? So if you had a feeling for Conklin, I just want to check where they're at in the ranks real quick. Yeah, Conklin is, you know, I'm playing Everett, but it's been kind of disappointing, I guess. Running back, Swift, Edwards, or Patterson. I feel like I'm totally off the Swift train more than I should be. He's still a big play threat, but man, it's just not been, you know, it's not trustworthy workload. I'd probably play Edwards. I trust Edwards' workload more than I trust Swift. I think Swift has more upside. And I think Patterson I'd probably play over both of them right now. So he's getting at least half that work, it seems. Do you believe in the San Francisco defense at least getting positive points in a PPR? Sure. Half point PPR, Mr. Scampers wants to know Boyd versus KC or Devontae Smith versus Tennessee, starting one over Mike Evans because he's hurt me too much. I get it, man. I get it. Just for the record, I'm probably playing Evans over those guys and holding out hope. But it's the Marshawn Lattimore game, so chances are he'll get kicked out before it even matters, right? So I'd go Devontae Smith over Boyd this week because I think Jamar Chase is coming back. Andrea, George Pickens versus Lander, Josh Palmer. I'm going to probably play Palmer, but this is a close enough one. If you like Pickens and it's a fantastic matchup, go ahead and play Pickens. Who do I think was really the running back up in San Francisco? I think it's two guys. I think it's Jordan Mason and Tyrion Davis-Price, with Mason having the edge, right? And I think one of the reasons we've seen more of him is because he plays special teams and Tyrion Davis-Price does not. So, you know, but I think we'll see both of them. And watch out, y'all. If they promote Tevin Coleman later today from the practice squad to the active roster, he could easily have a role there as well. But for me right now, it's Jordan Mason. Just based on what we've seen. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Appreciate you all. Last question before I get out of here. I'm already running a little late. Hey, do you think OBJ is droppable at this point? Yes. He won't make an impact. His signing will be NFL related more than it's fantasy related, and I don't think it's going to be all that NFL relevant either, even for a team heading into playoffs. We don't know where he's at health-wise, so feel free to drop him. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Catch me on the radio tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Sirius XM NFL Radio and the Fantasy Channel simulcast. And tomorrow on the pregame show with Jeff Manns from 11 to 1. Go to the website, footballdiehards.com, with tons of great articles and content. Catch the replay if you missed it of the Friday night last night instead of Saturday, our normal night for the DFS lineup show. And you can watch a replay of my Wednesday on the hot seat as well. Again, thanks everyone for coming. Really appreciate your time. See you next week.